Welcome to the Awakened Anesthetist podcast. I'm your host, Mary Roberts. I'm a certified anesthesiologist assistant living and working outside of Kansas City, Missouri. I created this podcast to give CAAs across the nation a place to come together and awaken to our profession's unique ability to create a life by design rather than default. That process can start by simply listening and engaging with this podcast. By doing so, you're already changing what's possible for CAAs, for you, for me, for all of us. I'm so thankful you're here. Let's jump into this episode and see what we can do together. Hey, Awakened Anesthetist community. This is Mary Jean. How are you doing? I would love to hear an answer on the other side of this microphone because I'm actually feeling pretty overwhelmed. And it's hard when you're overwhelmed to find your way through. Everything starts to feel really heavy and like the simple things start to feel like they're not going to make a difference. And just know that this episode is very much for me as much as it is for all of you who are listening. I have compiled a list of just 4 things that have helped. And the first thing I wanted to say, which is not on the list, is something that has been incredibly motivating for me. Because oftentimes when you are overwhelmed or stressed, you don't think that you're going to be able to remove the thing that's causing the overwhelm or the stress. So for example, as a CAA, when you're in AA school or when you're in a hard case or you're in a hard work environment, you can't just up and leave that position. And so the thing that's causing you all of the stress is going to be there the next day and the next day. And so it can feel really defeating to feel like you're never going to get off this hamster wheel of overwhelm. But the research shows that even while the stressor, the thing that's causing the stress or the overwhelm, remains in your life, your body is meant to go into a cycle of stress. It's meant to work up and give you that fight or flight response, and then your body wants to come down off of the stress response back into the parasympathetic mode. And so oftentimes, part of getting out of the overwhelm and the stress cycle is forcing your body to enter parasympathetic mode. So I talk a lot about the stress cycle with my UMKC MSA first-year students, and actually we're not going to talk as much about that in this episode, even though I'm starting off with that little tidbit, but I just think it's really helpful to know that it's actually possible to not feel overwhelmed all day, every day, even when you're in the midst of a really hard thing like AA school or working as a CAA. So just know that as we go into this list of 4 things. The first way to beat overwhelm that I wanted to share is super simple, super tactical, and I think it was the thing that saved me in AA school. So go to your bedroom right now if you're at home, and if there is not a pen and paper on your nightstand, please go find Post-its, note cards, a little notebook, and something to write with, and put them on your nightstand. Because when you're in bed, lying awake with 1,000 thoughts going through our heads, everyone knows what that feels like. And that stress of not being able to go to sleep and knowing you need to go to sleep and you have a 4 a.m. wake-up call, and there's all these thoughts. Something really helpful happens when you take a moment to write down all of those thoughts with pen and paper and then allow it to exit your brain and be on that piece of paper for you in the morning. It was extremely helpful in AA school to take up this habit and this practice, and I felt instant relief, which is really motivating to want to keep doing it again. So if you're at home or if you are listening to this and as soon as you get home, you can find a pen and paper and put it on your nightstand so that it's accessible for you at night. If you have racing thoughts that you can't escape, writing them down is extremely helpful practice to feel less overwhelmed and truly just be able to fall asleep. That leads me into my second tip for beating overwhelm and stress, and that's simply to get back to the basics. A lot of times we as CAAs are looking for maybe a quick fix or instant gratification or something that we've not heard of or thought of before, some new fancy way to solve our problem. And the research shows that what truly helps regulate our nervous system and get us out of that fight or flight, stress, overwhelmed response is sleep, exercise, getting out in nature, and a little bit of mindfulness. Not all of those things all day long, of course, but when you feel stressed and overwhelmed, if you can remember, maybe this is because I need sleep. Maybe this is because I've been in a dark operating room all day. Maybe this is because I need to move my body. And try one of those things in order to reduce your stress and overwhelm. And be really mindful about how you feel before you do it and how you feel after. And that can really help your brain lay down neural pathways saying, oh yeah, I remember. I do feel better after I get a good sleep. I do feel better after I move my body. And so your prefrontal cortex starts telling you, yes, do that thing when you feel overwhelmed and stressed, as opposed to all the other many coping mechanisms that you could be doing. Okay, the third habit to reduce stress and overwhelm is the hardest. It is the hard truth of it, and it is the fact that you need to be looking at your life and figuring out where you can get more time. Now, likely you feel like there's absolutely no extra time in your day, and certainly when I'm overwhelmed and stressed, I feel like that's the absolute last thing I have is time. And oftentimes my overwhelm is surrounding the idea that I don't have enough time to do it all. Whenever I feel like that, I know it's time to start doing an inventory of where I'm wasting my time. And it's really helpful for me to understand that oftentimes the things that pull my attention away from whatever I need to be doing or whatever I need to do to move the needle forward in my life, whatever I'm being distracted from that, I'm likely getting dopamine from it. And that's why my brain tells my body, go ahead and eat that hot fudge sundae as opposed to sitting down to type that email. And so if we can realize that all of the time that we spend on social media, all of the time that we spend scrolling, all of the time we spend just totally checked out on Netflix is because our bodies are desiring something. We don't feel good. Duh. We feel overwhelmed, stressed, icky. And we know that those are ways to get a quick fix of dopamine. Nothing wrong with that. Until you need to recapture that time to do something you really want to be doing, or you want to feel better and different for a longer period of time. It feels awesome to Netflix and chill, but then the next day, oftentimes you're beating yourself up because you lost the entire day to Netflix and chill. So this just takes a really keen eye to look at our lives and say, yeah, I've totally been scrolling Instagram for a couple hours at night after my kids go to bed. I'm pretty sure that's because I'm stressed and overwhelmed. I'm just looking to feel good and escape this icky feeling that I have at nighttime. And what can I do to avoid defaulting to that dopamine hit? And that's some inner work that you're going to have to do on your own. But I do think that it's helpful to know that you need to find time in order to get back to the basics. You're not going to be able to go for a walk outside or move your body or get extra hours of sleep if you're losing time to some of these less fruitful habits that are still making you feel good, but they're not going to make you feel good in the long run. Okay, that was number 3. Number 4 has specifically been impactful in my own life, especially since pandemic. I'm encouraging you all, like I had to do, to reframe exercise, not as a way to make our bodies look a certain way or to gain muscle or lose fat or to get bigger or smaller or whatever our body image goals are telling us that we want, but to reframe exercise as something that's going to improve our mental health. That's really taken the pressure off of exercise for me. If I know that I'm moving my body not for my physical health necessarily, but for my mental health, I'm not beating myself up if I don't break out in a sweat, that I can just go for a walk and enjoy the way that makes me feel and know that I'm really doing this huge, awesome thing for my body. There is a whole bunch of cultural conditioning and body image gunk, particularly for women, when it comes to exercise. And so shifting my mindset away from exercises to make my body look a certain way to exercises about making me feel good emotionally, and all I need to do is move. That's my only criteria, has been super freeing. And I can tell that after I move my body in whatever way has felt good for me that day, my mental health is better, I feel less overwhelmed, I feel less stressed, I feel more energetic, and my whole rest of my day goes better. All right, Those are my 4 habits to reduce overwhelm and stress in my own life, also backed by science and research. I hope they're helpful for you. I know that we all deserve to feel good behind the drape, and I hope this episode moves us one step closer to that. All right, talk soon.